listen to this article really quickly. I was very impressed with this. One of the things you've probably noticed too is that small-minded people are jumpy, insecure, and unsure of themselves. Thus, they get their feelings hurt easily, tend to be condescending, and, when in a position to do so, seem to take a perverse delight in putting others down or humiliating them. Several news outlets have carried the story of an awkward moment between White House advisor Valerie Jarrett and the second-ranking general of the United States Army. It took place at a White House dinner where both were guests. Four-star General Peter Chiarelli happened to be walking by the table at which Miss Jarrett was seated. Seeing only the striped pants of his uniform, she made the mistake of thinking he was a waiter and asked him to get her a glass of wine. Did I say earlier that this story was an awkward moment? It takes very little imagination to imagine what might have happened at the self-conscious juncture. Rebuke or embarrassment? Instead, this is what transpired. The general smiled, walked away briefly, and came back with a glass of wine that had been requested. Advised of her blunder during his brief absence, Miss Jarrett began to apologize with a red face and an acute sense of needing to set the matter right. With a secure look of humor and in order to diffuse her discomfort, General Chiarelli dismissed her honest mistake and invited her to a meal at his home. It was an honest mistake that anyone could have made, the general told a CNN reporter who questioned him about the gaffe. She was sitting and I was standing and walking behind her, and all she saw were the two stripes on my pants, which were almost identical to the waiter's pants, really. She apologized and will come to my house for dinner if a date can be worked out. You learn a lot about a mom or dad whose awkward toddler spills milk at the table, or a boss whose employee spills milk of another kind in the office or plant. The one whose anxious concern is her own embarrassment may smack the kid or berate the worker. The one whose mature reaction is to be concerned for the child or flummoxed member of her staff will seize upon a way to diffuse the potential for humiliation and move through it without damage to the other. Thank you, General Chiarelli, for displaying what columnist Bob Greene captured beautifully in a title. This is the title of the article. 4-star General, 5-star Grace. I thought that was a pretty good story. Lots of times, these generals and people in that kind of position can be a little snooty, you know, and it is, you know, you better know who you're dealing with. I've happened to witness some of this. I've been in situations and seen folks who, you know, by the world standards are, and you know, they're pretty high positions, and some of them you just can't stand to be around because they're just so full of themselves. This guy, I was just intrigued by this story. This must be a great guy. You know, this guy is the second highest ranking general in the Army. You know, he has people to do his bidding. You know, I mean, all day he has a driver, he has his own jet. I mean, this is a big mucky-muck. And I just found that very interesting, the way he handled that situation. He must be a pretty humble guy. We all struggle in battle against our pride. We all want to be noticed or recognized, and when somebody doesn't, if we do something or contribute something or some act of kindness or something, if we aren't noticed, we generally let it be known, right? You let it slip out there. We also fight for our position. Somebody slights us or offends us or something, we come out fighting. That's the natural thing to do. That's the human element that's ingrained in us, is to do that. And we spend so much time being offended and being upset with one another that it just robs us of peace and joy, and it really robs us of the focus of what our mission ought to be. There's a passage here in 1 Peter that I thought about this weekend. On Sunday, I went down to my dad's house, visited my parents, my mom's house too, I guess. She wouldn't like that. My parents' house. And they have a pond and pretty big fish in it, and we go fishing some. And I noticed a tree down there, a honey locust. Isn't that what you call them, honey locusts? Sounds all nice and everything. And this is what they produce. cover the tree. You couldn't even put your hand and touch the trunk of the tree because this thing, but it's on a nice little limb. This is all dried out now, but on Sunday when I cut it, this was all new little leaf. It looked all sweet. You know, it got this nice little flower on the end, and it got this big honking thorn on it. And I mean, this sucker is almost like a nail. You can come feel it if you want to. It is, man, it is tough. I don't know, I can't bend it. That's awful. When I saw that thing, my mind immediately went to this verse. And I just thought about the Son of God, who not only was crucified and executed on a cross, he suffered the humiliation and the little extra jabs of the creative minds of these soldiers. And they took thorns. I don't know what they look like. I always imagine in my mind that they look like that. And they pressed them down on his head as a crown, because this guy was a king, right? So they were making fun of him. And they spit on him, and they pulled his beard out. They called him names, and they punched him in the face, played a little game with him, you know. Who hit you? Tell us who hit you. And they bowed down to him. Whatever they could do to add some humiliation to this already terrible situation. In 1 Peter 2, starting verse 23, it said, people insulted him, but he never insulted them back. He suffered, but he did not threaten anyone. No, he let God take care of him. God is the one who judges rightly. Christ carried our sins in his body on the cross. I'm going to read that sentence again. Christ carried our sins in his body on the cross. He did this so that we would stop living for sin and live for what is right. By his wounds you were healed. You were like sheep that went the wrong way, but now you've come back to the shepherd and the protector of your lives. We spend so much time worried about ourselves, don't we? I do. I know I do. I'm so quick to be offended. Boy, if somebody says something to me and I bow up and I'm ready to come out fighting. You got to fight for yourself, right? You got to stick up for number one. Jesus didn't do any of that. Jesus was the perfect example of humility. If anybody had a right, you know, to call down fire and destroy everybody, it was him, and he could do it. That's the thing. He not only had the right, he had the ability. But he allowed himself to be absolutely humiliated. And I'm going to sit around and be offended at something, or I'm going to sit around and blab about, whoa, look at all I do, when in the scheme of things it's nothing. I think we talked about it in here. I know I talked about it in my Bible class. I gave my Bible class homework one day. I said, your homework is to do something kind for somebody and never tell a soul. Not one soul. You can't tell anybody. Do something real. I mean something that makes a difference. I don't mean, you know, I'm going to let you get in front of me at the water fountain. I mean do something really, really that's going to make somebody take notice and never tell a soul. Can you do that? I wonder how many of you have ever tried to do that. And if you've never tried, you try and see how difficult it is. We just have this need to it's just got to slip out. We just got to be recognized. You know? We've got to let somebody know how hard we're working, or how generous we are, or how kind we are. We've got to let it slip out. We need to feed our pride. And it is so ridiculous when you compare where we are to what Christ did for us. I guess today, I'm probably going to leave this in my office for a while just to look at it. Just kind of remember, you know, first of all, just relax. You don't have to fight for everything. You don't have to be right all the time and prove your point. Just relax. Just do what you're supposed to do and let God be the judge.